Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Fresh Off the Set. Thanks for listening. My name is David Osmond.
And I am Kari Hawker-Diaz. Okay, David, do you have any screen time rules for your kids? I know that every parent is different, but it's a very hard thing to navigate.
It's hard, yeah. But and it's cool how they're able to connect with their friends, keep in touch with us, everything. My two girls have iPhones, and they're 16 and 14, and my son has a Gab phone, which is has no social media apps and definitely is limited on screen time.
Those are great.
For the girls, I have put screen time restrictions on each of those phones. So they only get so many minutes per day for certain apps and for certain things. So it shuts down and they have to request more time, and I get notifications. My wife gets notifications, and we can give them 15 more minutes or an hour, whatever we see fit.
Yeah.
But for the social media thing, we definitely limit it. And then we have phones off at 10 p.m., turn them in, they're off.
Yeah.
So they're not sitting there doing, even just contacting or FaceTiming friends or just staying on too long.
Sure.
Just get off the phones. And they're very active in general, as with soccer in particular, especially the girls. So we're very lucky that way, but we have to regulate it. And I kind of feel weird being that dad or that guy, but I'm certainly glad, and I almost feel like we need to do more.
Yeah, we got to protect our kids.
And with your daughter, with Amelia, you have certain parameters, screen time rules? Anything?
Yeah. So she has a tablet, and there's some educational games on there, of course, and then she also has a couple apps that she can watch kids' movies, and so we're very aware of how much time she is on it, and I have noticed the longer that kids are on there, whether it's social media or, just like us when we're just scrolling, and you try to take that away, it's hard. It's like it's like taking a banana away from an angry monkey or something, like you don't want to mess with, and it's hard. So
100%. And we're all different. I laugh, but it's because it's true.
Yeah, it's so true.
And these kids are being bombarded. It's interesting that they haven't had social media for very long, and very just droplets of it and very limited amounts.
Yeah.
But I can already see just a little bit of how it's affecting them on a personality side.
Sure.
And I have seen it from even my nieces, nephews, and their friends that are spending, I know, way more time than our kids are, and I've seen that it has affected their personalities.
Yeah.
And someone that is passionate about this, you sat down with Chris Jones, who wrote a paper up on this. Tell me about what your conversation is, what we can expect from today's episode.
Well, I think all of us are looking for those answers, right? And and every family dynamic is different. So if you can take a little bit away from this, just to even help. But Chris Jones, he was a former TV reporter here at KUTV. He turned communications manager, but he wrote an article of how he has zero screen time with his son. They figured out a way that they don't do screen time, and it has changed their life, including parents, including his son, made everything so much better, and he has tips. I think this is a wonderful podcast for parents to listen to, no matter what age your kids are, just to get those tips and tricks to try
Someone
to make
else
it
who
better.
had zero screen time for their kids, Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Who created it all.
It all.
I mean, there's proof in the pudding. There's a lot of people that have seen the effects of this and have made choices to put those barriers in place. And so this is a very timely conversation. Can't wait to hear it.
Yep. Let's give it a listen. Chris, I am so excited to be chatting with you about this. Thank you for sitting down with me.
Well, it's good to be back, in the old haunts that I used to be here for years.
It's so funny because we walked you through the doors just a little bit ago, and everyone's like, Chris, like you're a celebrity here.
Not as big of a celebrity as you.
Oh, right.
Course,
I'm just trying to be like you. Are you kidding? And before we dive into the topic today, you used to be our coworker here. I mean, you and I actually shared a desk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I would come in the morning, and then you would follow up in the evening, and I would leave popcorn and cheese and wrappers all over the place.
I probably left half full drinks because that's my usual go-to.
And I would drink them. But yeah, of course, I was a reporter here for 15 years, and covered everything from homicides to fires to court cases. And in the last 4 years that I was here, I was the education reporter with Beyond. It was initially called Beyond the Books, and then they changed the name to Crisis in the Classroom. So time here spans, and then of course before that I was at ABC4 for like 10 years. So I've been here for, if you added up, 1,000 years.
But you started when you were 10 years old,
I
right?
was just a baby.
just a baby. Well, we have missed you. You were so good at what you did, and you continue to kill it at what you're doing. And speaking of that, you've somehow gotten your son off screen time. How did you think, like, parenting style, how your background in news shape your career and life and your parenting style, do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, being a reporter made me incredibly wary of the world, right? Yeah. So, just came especially concerned about just all the outside threats that I personally faced. And then, of course, once I had a child, the same thing. And it became crystal clear that sometimes the threats aren't necessarily physical, but emotional and mental. And having covered education for so long, I started to talk to experts who were telling me about the dangers of screens.
Yeah.
And some of the experts I talked to over the years were saying things like, if your kid spends more than 7 hours a day on their iPad, they have a 50% better chance of suffering from depression and anxiety.
Wow.
So these were the kinds of facts I was gathering as a reporter during my time here. And it just kind of put it in my memory bank. And, after COVID, kids were immersed in their iPads, not only for school, but just because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And teachers that I talked to, when they started to let kids go back to school, were saying that the kids were coming in unprepared, socially unaware. Their behaviors were off the charts bad. And a lot of them attributed that to the screens that the kids had been on during COVID and beyond.
Sure. Now, I think my experience hosting as well, every therapist or a child psychologist that we've interviewed has always said the worst thing you can do is hand your child a screen. Now, I'm talking specifically social media is what I've mostly talked with them about. But is this screen time, are we talking like just in general screen time, like even if they're like brain games and things, are we talking social media or all of it in general?
It's all of it. Screen time in general does have a negative effect on children. And what I found with my own son is definitely the case. So he spent so much time on screens during a time when I was in the middle of a divorce, a brutal divorce, but aren't all divorces brutal, right?
Probably, yes.
And I just didn't have the emotional capacity or bandwidth to really be the father that I knew I had to be.
And screens entertain.
They do. And they really are. If I had a Zoom meeting I had to do, or if I just needed to unwind from the chaos of the day, it was so easy to just hand him that iPad.
Yeah.
And he would be transfixed. And what I started to see is trying to get him off of the iPad was not only a battle, it was always, Dad, 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes. And I would often acquiesce because, I
we
just
got 10 more minutes, it's okay.
Exactly. And then it turns into 3 hours later.
Yeah.
But when he would get off, his attention span was limited. He was irritable. He really didn't care about, it's not like he would get off the iPad and go and build Legos or read a book. He would get off the iPad and anticipate getting back on the iPad.
He'd be thinking about it.
Yeah. And so I started to really see my bright, smart, blue-eyed, bright-eyed kid.
And he is so bright and smart, man. He really is.
He is so smart. But all of that was being, I felt, sort of just crushed by the lure of the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. And you recently wrote an article about breaking that bond between our kids and their screens. What inspired this change other than, you spoke about it just a little bit. Can you walk us through the moment you realized, okay, something has to change?
Yeah. Well, I'll lay some groundwork. You have to understand, William was also going through a divorce, right? There wasn't just the two of us, his mom and me, doing the divorce. It was him too. He was most affected by it. And so for him, the screens became an escape, of course. One evening, I was sitting on his bed watching him play this game, and his eyes were just darting all over the screen. And he just had this grin just plastered to his face, but it didn't say happiness. It just didn't work for me. And I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. And that evening, I just made the decision. I said, you know what? We're not going to change the rules around screens. We're going to change the game. And the way I look at it is, if you see a kid out in a field with a football, you can go in and change the rule about tackling and touchdowns, but it's still football. The only way to really change it is to bring in a soccer ball. And that way you change the rules and you change the game. And I decided I was going to change the game altogether and get rid of the iPad. And when I presented it to him, you can only imagine.
That's like taking a banana away from a hungry gorilla, right? Gosh. When you take away these screens from kids, they go crazy.
And so, he stomped out, he cried. And I'll tell you, for 4 days, he didn't do anything. He laid on the couch, just looked at the ceiling, kind of rolled around on the floor, just wouldn't eat, was so angry at me. Then over time, I'd say, well, why don't you play with your Legos? Why don't you read? He's like, no, Dad. But then eventually He just got so bored that he pulled out this typewriter Lego set that I had gotten for him, like 3,000 pieces. I purchased it for him the Christmas before. Hadn't touched it in a year because he'd rather play with the screen.
Sure.
He pulls it out, and then 4 days later, it was done.
Wow.
And then within a year, he's read 51 books, right? He hadn't read a single book up to that point. So this decision was a dramatic one, but it dramatically changed his life, not only from his interests, but his standardized tests at school through the roof. His social interactions changed dramatically.
That's incredible.
And his relationship with me, if you'd have told me 3 years ago, like he was so mad, not only about the divorce, but just angry at me, our relationship is a different relationship. He's snuggly and cuddly and loving. And I attribute 60 to 70% to that, to getting off of screens, because it was that dramatic of a change for him over time.
I think all parents listening in all three categories that you just said, he improved in. I think we're all wanting that and all wishing that we can have, them do better in school, reading books, better relationships with us and their siblings and the rest of their family. Let's talk about a screen break. Let's define it clearly for us. And then when we say screens, are we talking TV screens or are we talking strictly tablets?
So what my kind of rule is, and I'll just tell you, I'm an evangelist of this. I believe in it so strongly. And I would say as a parent, this is the one thing that I'm the most proud of as a parenting hack, I guess. For us, it means no iPad whatsoever. No telephone whatsoever. We're not going to give him a phone until he's 16, is our thought. We will allow for limited television, but it cannot be YouTube and Reels and short content, like 30 seconds. We make sure that if he's going to watch a show, it's limited the amount of time, of 30 minutes or an hour. And it's got to be...
Per day, 30 minutes, hour per day.
Per day.
Okay. And
it's got to be a narrative, a beginning, middle, and end, a story. Because that's something I noticed about him is he didn't tell stories. He just gave memes, like verbal memes from stuff he'd seen online. So for us, it's nothing with the interactive iPad. And then screens are limited. And what we've been doing lately is we've got him on such a tight schedule, 7:30 for shower, 8:30 for bed. But after shower, there's 30 minutes where he'll snuggle up in bed with us. And we either watch Portlandia or we watch 30 minutes of the British Bake Off.
I love it. I love that. That's a great time.
And
That's
we give him a little bit of that. We don't want him to not understand the world. So that's what we do. It's the dramatic change, and it's challenging for parents. And I do know that for me, I had to change everything about the way I was doing business because it was so easy just to give him the iPad, as we mentioned.
It's the easiest.
It's so easy. And I know all of your listeners are saying, I know I shouldn't. Because that's what I was saying. The guilt that I felt was so strong about every time I would hand him.
That parent guilt is real.
It's real. And, we just decided that this is for him. It may not be true for every kid, but for him, this was the way to go.
And how old is he now?
He's 11 now.
And when did you start this?
So this is 3 years ago.
So he was, 8.
8 years old, yeah.
Are you talking when we say screen break? Of course, like when we're at home and we've got things to do and it's just easy to hand over the screen. Okay, what about restaurants? What about road trips? Because those are the key times when it's like you need them to be entertained. Is that including all of those arenas? Okay.
All of it. And it's so hard. It is so hard. But for us, we felt, and this is our strategy, for us, we felt like, because we did do this, we traveled to Hawaii like a year into this new thing. And he was on, we allowed him to be on the screen for the travel time. And what we found is it was the same old stuff. Angry, irritated, short attention span. And we just decided, you know what? No, we can't even do it for that amount of time.
Is this like in general or like right after you would take away the
This
iPad?
was after.
Okay.
This was after. And then, after a while, he would sort of cleanse himself of the desire. And, one of the researchers that I quote in the City Weekly article that I did, she said, look, this is the modern day hypodermic needle is the iPad. And so that's kind of how we've really viewed it. What I had to do is change the way I did business too, because I'd be on TikTok. Right. And he would say, well, Dad, how come I have to be off screens and you aren't?
Because he's seeing you as his example.
He's seeing me. Yeah. And so what I had to do is say, you know what, you're right. And I got off of TikTok and I was addicted to TikTok, but I got off of it. And you know what? His respect for me, like I could see it. Like if I had my phone up and I was reading an email, he'd come behind my back and he'd see, oh, it's not TikTok. And you could just sense that he was like, yeah, that's cool. My dad practices what he preaches.
Yeah. And they know. Like if you're scrolling, they know.
They're so smart.
They don't need the screen to see. Okay, so Chris, implementing that screen break policy sounds so straightforward. What were some of the unexpected challenges you faced when taking those steps to enforce it? And maybe we'll just start there. Any unexpected challenges you faced other than just like him not wanting to do it at first?
Well, one of the challenges is the co-parenting situation. His mom has a different rule about screens than I do. If you're in a co-parenting situation, you have to just accept that that's just the way it's going to be. So that is number one. And one of the things that I also realized is that his friends are so immersed as well. And that's no knock on his friends. But I'll give you an example. They used to always go to the library after school. And they could walk right over and they would go and I thought they were playing and reading books. But no, they were on the computer playing Roblox.
Sitting at the library on the computers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My thought was that they were actually over there like having a real interaction with each other. But one day I popped in early to get him and they were all lined up at the computers. They weren't talking to each other. So his friendships began to change because I said, no more library if this is what it's going to be.
Right.
And so his friend, who he refers to as iPad kids, and he's like, he's proud that he's not an iPad kid. Now, I don't want other parents to think that I'm if he goes to a sleepover, he was at a sleepover recently and they watched some shows on Netflix. I'm not a monster about it. And I understand that there is a world that he has to live in. But at our home, these are just the things. And as you mentioned, some of the side effects of like making these kinds of changes.
Yeah. And that's a really good point because when he's at friends' houses or sleepovers or extended family or co-parenting situations, you kind of have to just control what you can control in the moment when he's with you.
Exactly.
Okay. If we're talking about steps of taking our kids off the screens, can you be specific of, was it immediate? You just took it away? Did you have a conversation with your son? Was it like gradually less and less? Because there is that sort of like addiction element to it too, right?
Yeah. I had a conversation with him. It was an evening and I told him what was going to happen and that it was going to happen immediately and the next day. I'm not sure that that's necessarily the best way, but it's what we did. I can see a scenario where saying, today it's going to be 3 hours, tomorrow it's going to be 2.5, and then I could see you weaning your child off of
a little bit at a
time. Little bit. But I think either way, it is going to be a challenge and it requires kind of a cultural shift in your own mind. I can't tell you how many games of Uno I play when I come home from school, and it's the worst game, and I can't stand it, but I play a lot of Uno, right?
And you're present.
And I'm present.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you don't want to be. You're just like, what? Please just go away.
It's the last thing when you're done with your day. Even with parents that are at home all day, and you have that like second shift of maybe switching off with the other parent, the last thing you want to do, you just want to escape. Yeah. And sometimes screens are the easiest way to do it for everybody.
Exactly. And so I hope parents aren't thinking that I feel superior because they're like, look what I do. No, it's so terrible.
Looking down on everybody.
It's like, oh, look at you people. No, absolutely not. Because I just know for me, it's like, and look, I'm not perfect. Like when he goes playing Uno and he runs to the bathroom, I'll sneak a peek at social media,
Sure. We're also we're realistic about it. Okay, what, Chris, have you observed in your community, maybe regarding children's screen habits and their impact?
I will tell you, and I mentioned this in the story, every one of my friends, not some, every one of my friends has this internal dialogue about their concerns about screens. And I hear, once a week from friends who will call me up and say, I was trying to get how was your day? It was a tough day. I couldn't get so-and-so off of the screen. We were late for school. And then I told him he wasn't going to be able to have it. And he was so mad and he went to school angry. And so this is an issue. I think this is an issue for every parent. What's your experience?
Same.
Yeah.
Same. And if you start thinking about the behavior, and I wonder if it is linked. And our daughter is she's pretty well behaved. She's an only child and she hangs around adults a lot, so she's a little bit more mature, I think, than some kids in my experience. But I notice, interestingly, and I haven't thought about this till you and I just had this conversation right now, taking away the tablet, that's hard. That's the hard part, right? But then after, it's almost like a dip in mood.
Yes.
Of like, and I often have thought, is it what she's watching? And it's usually like Disney Channel stuff, but it's like in the dip of the mood after. And then it's like us having to say like, what's the matter? And it's almost like a divot in the day.
Yeah. And if you talk to experts, they'll tell you that screen time is a lot like drug addiction. And for people who drink or stop drinking, they'll tell you that the next day, like there's a dip in their serotonin, and there's an element of depression that sets in, and then it'll take them a couple of 3 days to kind of recover from, maybe a weekend of drinking. How can that not be the same case, especially when you're talking about kids whose serotonin is spiked?
Yeah.
And then you take that away.
And it crashes.
And then it crashes.
That's a really good point.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Speaking of that, Counselor Corinne Johnson highlighted a rise in childhood anxiety linked to screen use. Do you think that also plays a part in, maybe all day long, maybe using a screen for too long and then the after effects, and then it goes into the next day, even if you're not on the screen, on and off?
1,000%. I saw it in my own son. I would see it after he got off of screens, that his mood, his temper, his nature, his kind and loving nature was very different.
Yeah.
Especially after playing some of these high impact video games that he would play. I would definitely see it. And then from a broader perspective, like I see kids who, and you hear about this, that Gen X stare or the Gen Z stare. Have you heard this? Yeah. This idea that people from Generation Z are kind of on screens all day long. So when they look at you, it's kind of this blank stare because there's a certain lack of social interactions that they have.
Interesting.
I saw that a lot with William. And now that he's off of screens, like he'll shake hands. He does eye contact. He'll say thank you and hello and, try to engage in a little bit of conversation. But he was not doing that when he was on screens because it was just there was no training of that social interaction muscle.
Yeah, yeah. I saw this the other day, Chris, and I can't remember where, of course, it's probably on a screen somewhere, obviously, but it talked about our brains are not wired to take in this overload of sensory information, and now everything is so short. You just scroll, and everything is like just coming at you, and our brains, especially our children's brains, are not supposed to know how to handle that.
No, and I see it all the time if I'm on like TikTok and somebody will say, okay, listen, this is going to be a 3-minute video. I'm like, goodbye,
Yeah, that's a long video.
That's a long time.
3 minutes.
That's a long time.
Okay, so given your experience, what advice would you offer to other parents going through this and thinking, okay, this sounds like a big mountain to climb. Can I do this? Is this worth it? And maybe they have multiple kids in the kind of that age range.
Let me just preface it by saying my experience, I'm not an expert, and I am not here to judge any parent because I know how difficult being a parent is. I have one son, and so it was easier for me. But if you've got 4 kids and you're trying to manage the chaos, like screens really help to manage that. I think try to create a plan that works for you. A friend of mine does just screenless Sundays.
That's great. So just less time on screens.
Less time.
That's better than maybe what you're doing now.
Right. And then I would say if you're going to go as dramatically as I did, just be prepared and get ready for an internal cultural change for yourself. This means this isn't just taking the screen away from your child. This is meaning you've got to make some changes yourself. But that being said, if you decide that you want to limit screens, then you got to be, when it's an hour, it's not an hour and 10 minutes, it's an hour. And I would say limit it to 2 to 3 hours a day. Don't allow them on screens in the evening. Don't allow them on screens in the morning. And maybe make things like reading part of the process of, look, if you get through 3 chapters of Harry Potter, you can get an hour of screens. Maybe that works for you.
That's a good deal.
And that's a good deal. And maybe if you're lucky, they say, you know what, I'm going to finish chapter 4. I'm going to finish chapter 5.
Yeah.
And then it's bedtime. Oh, I don't need the screen today. Maybe that works.
That's true. That's very true.
For me, it was, I needed to go, we needed to do this kind of like no prisoners approach. I would say if you've got the capacity, that's the approach I would take, because the relationship with my son, his life, I can't tell you how much it has improved and how much better off we are without these infernal screens.
I know. Now that he has a couple 3 years with this behind him, does he, what's his opinion on this? Does he see that this has helped him? I mean, I'm sure sometimes we all do naturally just want that screen, but has he seen overall, what's his opinion?
He sees it and he knows it. And I think I mentioned earlier that he's proud that I'm not an iPad kid anymore, am I? I'm like, you're not. And, we were at a kid's birthday party and we were just having a casual conversation and, they mentioned screen time. And I didn't bring up our story, but I said, William's been reading a lot. And they're like, well, really? And I'm like, yeah, 51 books. And he heard me say that. And they're like, oh my gosh, your son read 51 books in a year?
He's a star.
And he was just beaming.
Oh.
Right? So to be able to kind of buck the system and to buck the trend that, I mean, we're all this kind of onslaught of screens and screen usage, to be able to buck that has given him really a sense of pride. And it's also been a building block of self-confidence for him.
Looking back on this, Chris, do you wish you had known earlier about the effects of screen time on kids, or do you feel like this no regrets and you did what you did at the time that you could?
I think that's the best way to put it. Is I think, you know, this sort of transition from the world we lived into to the screens that we've all been immersed in. You think about how quickly this transition, what was it, 2010, Facebook, 2011, Snapchat, 2016, TikTok. And then all of a sudden it just hit us all, right? And we're all immersed in it. And I'm as guilty as the next person. But I don't think I knew. I mean, when we put him on screens early on in his life, we did not realize the potential harm.
Sure.
You know, but then having experienced it and now having done some research and having kind of like lived the research on some level, I think we're all kind of coming around to seeing like, this is concerning, you know?
Yeah. I think that's a great mental state to live in, where we're not regretting and looking back and saying, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Because that's going to add that guilt that we have every day anyway, being parents, you know? So it's like, just think of today, moving forward, what you can do.
Yeah, my dad always said, you know, I mean, yesterday's over, tomorrow may never come. Live today, right?
That's true. Okay, what's next for you and your son? Are there any new strategies or routines you've adopted to ensure a balanced relationship with technology moving forward?
So what we've decided is to give him a little more access to ChatGPT of all things. And I'll tell you why. In part because of his getting off of screens, he's really started to dig into things that interest him. He's got an unnatural fascination with seals and
love it.
The periodic table of elements.
Great.
What we'll do is as of late, is to give him an extra 30 minutes on ChatGPT to ask questions of ChatGPT. And he'll say, how many milligrams of plutonium will you find in the Earth's crust, right? He'll ask these kinds of questions.
The important things.
And so, you know, but that also requires me to be kind of at his side, you know, making sure that he doesn't wander off onto, you know, YouTube. So that's one of the things that we're starting to implement. And then in terms of what our plans are for future screen usage, we've already discussed is not going to be able to get a phone until he's 15. And
that's great.
Yeah, and our goal is we have no intention of allowing him on social media. That's a whole other conversation, the way it affects young girls, the way we're seeing the way it's affecting young boys. And we joke, well, not while you're in our house, you know, you're not going to be, because when we were kids, you'd be bullied at school and you could at least leave it at home, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays you can't. And I'll give you one quick example. Some of his friends they have cell phones and they're in a group chat. And one of the girls said to another girl, I low-key hate you. And that caused this ripple of just hard feelings and sadness and anxiety and depression in this group of friends. And William was totally oblivious to it because he doesn't have a phone, right? So phones and social media are going to be things that we are going to limit greatly. He can do social media as soon as he gets out in the world, I guess. But while he's with us, the intention is none.
What is your opinion on a child having a phone, but there's just maybe a music app on it and there's really not much else? Like no texting, no social media, obviously no internet, but it's just for music.
Well, I mean, what we do is we use a little thing called the Gab Watch, and all that does
Those are great.
Those are great. Gives them an ability to communicate with just a handful of adults, and then it has a GPS on it so you can track him.
Oh, perfect. There you go. There's your answer. Okay, this is great information. I know that all of us parents listening right now we can do this. We're in this together.
Well, I'm not an expert, right? And to all the parents out there, I love you all because I know what you're going through, and I hope nobody thinks that I'm acting superior because of this experience that I've had.
Not at all. And I think that I loved your ideas on, even if you can't completely take it away, if it's just less, and then maybe at some point you can take screens away, but even if it's just less, we can do better. And so it's just a reminder, these are our babies, our kids, you know, the most important things in our life. So, okay, we're going to get to Fresh 5 real quick. These are just 5 quick questions to get to know you.
Ready.
Okay, it's brunch. What are you ordering?
Eggs Benedict.
I love Eggs Benedict. Mm-hmm. Are you like Florentine? Are you like, do you add crab? Do you add like all the fancy stuff?
If it's on the menu, crab, I'll do that.
Okay.
If there's anything to add to it, I'm going to throw it in there.
Avocado, adding that.
Oh, yeah, put it all in there. I'll pay $40 for an egg.
One egg. If you want 2, it's $90. Okay, you're on a plane. Where are you headed?
For pleasure?
Yeah, for vacation.
I want to go to Spain again. That's where I would go. That's what I'm talking to my wife Nikki about is Spain down the road.
Oh, fantastic. Favorite holiday?
You know, Christmas always has been, but because of William, Halloween. He adores it, and he comes up with the craziest ideas for his. Last year, he was a rainbow taco cat.
Amazing.
We made a costume. He wore a rainbow outfit. We had cat ears and then a giant taco that he was wrapped in.
That's so fun. Best costume ever. See, creativity's not on screens. He's thinking of these fun things. Okay, what's scarier, spiders, snakes, or clowns?
That's a tough
He's
one.
thinking, you guys. He's thinking about
spiders, snakes, or clowns.
What's creepier to you?
Do any
of them scare you?
Well, I'm gonna go spiders.
Spiders.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm gonna go spiders. When I lived in Mississippi, we dealt with spiders all the time. The size of a $50. Oh, forget about it.
No thanks.
Yeah, I'm out.
No thanks. Okay, last question. What's making you smile right now in your life?
Well, I just started a new job
Heyo.
at Western Governors University. Smart people, wonderful people, great new challenges, and I'm just like super happy. And I'm married 4 months ago, and
Congrats.
And Nikki and I are happy as a clam, and we say all the time, we're living the good old days right now.
I saw that the other day. How do we know that we're in the good old days without looking back?
Yeah.
You're in it right now. Okay, so this feels kind of funny to ask you where we should follow to get on screens, because we've been talking to get off screens, but can we find your article or follow some tips somewhere?
Yeah, the article is a City Weekly article, and if you Google my name and algorithm, it'll pop up, City Weekly article. And I'm on Instagram. I'll post short stories about past reporting career, so stories that I've covered over the years. So if you go to @JonesNews, you can get some of that content, and it talks about my coverage of Josh Powell and Lori Hacking.
You were here for a lot of big stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, Chris, appreciate you.
Absolutely. So good to see you again.
So good to see you. And I love these tips, and I think we can all be better with our kiddos. So thank you so much for chatting with me today.
You bet.
And thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.